So I guess they're putting trampolines in courtrooms in Vegas now. But besides the Super Mario level jumping skills over that bench, there was some other stuff going on in that Vegas courtroom, and we're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. Mr. Roscoe, our sidekick, is on it. My name's Paul, and I'm sitting in front of it. And today we're going to be talking about that super viral video of the now inmate who leaped over the bench and attacked the judge. So we're going to be talking about that. Specifically, what we're going to talk about is we're going to look at some clips, hear what he has to say, then also look at him coming back in to actually get sentenced. So it'll be kind of a short video, but I couldn't let this one go. So what I'm going to do is give a little bit of context so we kind of know what all is going on, how we arrived at this video. Now, before I do give that context, if you want to follow Roscoe and myself on the Instagram, just go ahead and click the little thing. It's in the description. It's on the screen here if you want to, just go to it or whatever. We do real fancy Instagrammy things over there, okay? Like show off what kind of food we eat. It's real sophisticated, just like the sofa. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into that overview. So Redden, who is 30 years old, he was in front of Judge Holthus for sentencing. Now, he pleaded his case as to why he didn't want to go back to prison for a second time. He seemed really calm, but once the judge started talking and it was clear he won't get in just probation, he found some next level superhuman strength and jumped over the bench and attacked her, slamming her head against the wall, and even pulled some of her hair out. Now, there was a scruffle and he was subdued finally. He was taken away, but the judge didn't back down. She was back at work like the next day, and she even ordered him to appear face to face in front of her again for sentencing. Now, this time he was highly guarded and restrained, but like I said, it turns out there's a little bit more going on than just this aggressive behavior with him. He had a history of mental health issues, and there's also an issue with how the security responded at the courthouse when this incident went down. So that's the nuts and bolts of the case and how we arrived here. Let's go ahead and start looking at some of these clips and hearing him talk to her about, like, I don't want to go back to jail or prison or whatever, because you would think that this was a changed man.
Is there anything you want to say on your own behalf before I pronounce sentence?
So basically, I would like to tell the courts everyone here, like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that, like, I shouldn't be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
I actually just, I looked at it.
I mean, you lived it, I suppose.
I just looked at it, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
3 felonies, a gross, 9 misdemeanors, multiple DVs. Got a lot going on, sir.
Yeah, I just figured, like,
battery on a protected person, robberies, attempt home invasion.
I mean, it just kept going and going and going and getting worse. And, he was super nervous acting, right? Now, again, there was some other stuff going on that we're going to be hearing about his mental health issues and whatnot, because it does give a little bit of context to it. Now, at the end of the video, I will talk and speak more on that, my opinions of it. She has presided over one of his cases. Again, you heard the rap sheet, right? He's had a ton of cases. So she's presided over this. She probably feels like there's some kind of rapport here. She knows this dude, which makes it all the bit more interesting.
I just figure, like, I'm in a better place in my mind, my mental health. I have a support system. I just got hired as a teamster for, the union, making $20 an hour. And, like, the reason behind every single domestic violence, I've been dealing with mental health, and I didn't know that I was dealing with mental health. And they put me in mental health court, and I still didn't know that I had a mental health problem. And so it was August 2022 when I realized I have a problem with this. And, like, having a dictionary and, like, understanding myself, getting to know myself a little better, and applying it to my personality, and having an empathy at that moment, those instances, and just, like, trying to learn from my mistakes, And I feel like I shouldn't be sent to prison, but if it's appropriate for you, then you have to do what you have to do.
Woo! Talk about word salad. So you hear him talking about being in a better spot. And, he says, I've been in with the mental health court, but didn't know I had mental health issues, which this is a big, red indicator to me of okay, there's something else going on here, right? Because he's been in there a couple of times. Now you'll also hear where, he says, look, you got to do what you got to do. He seems really level-headed and understanding, but also, again, now, the nervousness aspect of it, I look at it in two ways. Number one, he's acting this way or whatever, and it's okay, is he, pleading for his life in his, mind? Not that he's going to get that kind of time, but, he doesn't want to go to prison, right? So he's very nervous, or is this part of some of the situations that might be going on with him? Now, his attorney will say, you know what, he doesn't even have a high school diploma, but he got this job and he's going to be working towards that. He should get probation. He's worth the risk to give him another chance. But let's just see how that goes over.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
Oh my God, y'all, every time I watch it, I'm just oh my God. The way he jumps over the thing. How did he do that, okay? I mean, he launched into the air. I mean, he got airtime. It was like he dove into the judge. Okay, now, this is what I've done. I've quieted the talking over it because we're going to rewatch it again. And I'm going to kind of talk us through. I'm going to talk us through it. Okay, so one thing to look at here is watch him. She's putting the glasses on. She's yeah, not so much. Now, just pay attention to her right now. She's looking up. She's oh, good. Oh, look at the jump. Look at the jump. The jump is insane. I mean, again, it's how does he do this? I mean, he just jumps up there like it's Super Mario Brothers and there's a gold coin up there. Now, here's the thing. I want to play that one more time in full, but watch the law clerk next to her. Watch his face this time. So they're sitting here. He's just looking up. It's another day. They're getting ready to sentence. And then here it goes. Here goes. Now watch his face. Here we go. The guy on the right. He's whoa, 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 whoa. Now, that guy apparently has known her his whole life, and people are kind of hailing him as a hero because he gets her out of the way. He gets some punches into the dude, too, and they can't subdue him. It took several people to subdue this guy. Okay, now let's look at another little clip, and what we're really looking at or listening is what the news reporter is saying in this to give some context of what was going on at a certain point while he's on the ground, because this is huge to me.
Off camera, down on the ground behind the bench, Redden appears to be in the throes of a psychotic break, yelling unintelligibly and loudly clapping.
So this for me is where a little bit more context comes in, because again, it's so weird how he was sitting there completely normal, and then when he could tell he was going to prison or whatever, or jail, whatever he thought, triggers him into a full-on rage. Okay, so you saw this other side to him, and then he's doing this stuff here where he seems to be in this situation, and now there is a historic narrative throughout his criminal career, I guess you could say, of mental health issues and whatnot. And one of the news shows I was watching, one of these, that was reporting on it, was almost going through the angle of, has the system failed this dude, and that type thing of mental health care in America, and how it's kind of like the jails do it now, and it almost in the way of you're watching this play out here. Now again, when it comes down to the dynamic of is mental health causing this or whatever, at the end of the day, this man was triggered in an instant and attacked a judge in the courtroom at sentencing. I mean, this is over the top, right? So there definitely needs to be something done about it. Now, the judge is sitting here saying, I've tried everything but prison. I mean, what are you going to do at that point, right? Now, let's take a moment and listen to another clip. And this is in regard to what was going on behind the scenes at the courthouse when this event popped off, when things took place, because this is another very big, amazing thing to me that I was oh, what?
Get off her.
Outside the courtroom, a delay in response. The arrest report states 2 marshals were notified of a panic alarm from courtroom 3G. They responded and said nothing appeared to be out of the ordinary. That's because the chaos was happening next door in courtroom 3F. Marshals were flagged down to the correct room and arrived as Redden was being taken into custody.
Okay, so they arrive when he's being taken into custody, so it's done with. Imagine how bad and sideways this could have gone. I mean, it did, right? But just think of all the other events that could be taking place, and this kind of breakdown of communication happens. Now, obviously, you see the guard, the dude, the law clerk, they're all jumping in and helping and whatnot. She meaning the judge was able to crawl under the desk. So, I mean, there was safety in that, but again, and this is an extreme situation. Most people at sentencing don't jump over the bench and attack the judge, right? But again, you never know. One of the news agencies also cited a situation where a judge had been taken out in front of his house because of some kind of a sentencing, some kind of ruling in a divorce case or whatever. So again, you just never know, but for someone to do it in the courtroom at sentencing is pretty next level. So eventually though, mistake, no mistake, whatever happened, he was subdued, he was taken out, and let's take a minute to hear some of the remarks he was making.
While marshals transported Redden to his holding cell, he reportedly told them, quote, "Judge has it out for me. Judge is evil," asking one marshal if what he did was wrong, saying, quote, "I'm sorry you guys had to see that."
Alrighty then. Yeah, I would go on a little bit of a limb there and say it was wrong. Now, once at the correction facility, he would spit in a guard's face. He would also make comments about how he had had a bad day and tried to take the judge out that day while in court. So that being said, he still had to get sentenced for these crimes. So let's take a moment and see how that next court appearance was going to go and what they did to prepare him and the public and the judge for that.
Mr. Almaci's here now.
I'm talking heavy presence. I'm talking armed guard up in there. Now, apparently they had all sorts of cops, guards, private security, you name it. Now, you saw him. I mean, looking like a damn fool in there. Spit mask, handguards, shackled down, surrounded. All this for one person, right? But, however, do you see when he came in, he made that look like he was talking to somebody like, "Hey, I love you," or whatever he said. I don't know. His mouth was covered. But it was very interesting to see, like, okay, now this is where we're at. Now, the judge kept on with business. That little beating she took from him didn't slow her down a bit. Okay. So she forced him to come back in, like I said, and do the actual sentencing. So you see how he comes in there. Now, let's take a moment and hear what she had to say.
I want to make it clear that I am not changing or modifying the sentence I was in the process of imposing last week before I was interrupted by defendant's actions. I am making my calendar page from that day an exhibit for the court. As it existed the moment I walked in, from prior to anything happening, nothing's been changed, indicating the sentence I intended to impose.
Wow. So, a couple of things here. You heard her say, number one, like before the defendant interrupted, she was being very level-headed, very fair. I'm not changing my sentence. I'm not doing anything. Now, we'll have to wait to see what kind of other situations come from this. Because, I mean, it's not good. She's being pretty fair. I mean, she's not like, I'm not going to bang him up. She's just, look, it is what it is. Here, we're going to do this. You're not going to control this courtroom by acting out and trying to come up here and threaten me. You will get locked down. You will get shackled, and you will come here and you will get the sentence that I was going to give you.
$50 DNA fee, the $3 DNA administrative assessment fee, and $250 indigent defense fee, 19 to 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections. How much credit for time served does he have?
It's 0 days. He was on probation when he committed the offense.
Okay, so some fines in 19 to 48 months. Okay. I mean, it could be worse. I mean, to me, he got off very lucky. And you see how he's sitting there with a mask on and stuff like that. I mean, it's really serious. And, it makes you wonder, would he have shown up and shown out again if given the chance here, right? You have to ask. You know what I'm saying? So I want to talk about just a few things and go back over them and give some final thoughts on this. So mental health in the courts. As we've seen, mental health situations have been kind of taken over by the courts and institutions like jails and prisons and whatnot, as opposed to a specifically focused place. It just isn't what it used to be, and I think that this shows. I definitely think this guy has something going on. The clapping of the hands, some of the remarks he was making, and just the historical narrative of his crimes. He's been in mental health court a couple of times, so there's definitely something going on there. So someone like him, to me, I'm like, this person would greatly benefit if he is in prison, if he's in jail, and something that is targeted to individuals with maybe some of the situations or conditions that he is experiencing. Because to me, it did seem like something triggered him and he went off into another personality or something. Now that being said, am I the type of person that's like, oh, he, it's okay, he gets a free pat? No, he's attacked a judge, right? So whether he gets help in an institution or a prison or whatever, he needs to get right with that. You know what I'm saying? Because what's going through my head and watching this is, you hear all these charges. I'm like, well, my gosh, what happens when he gets told no by somebody? What happens if his girlfriend or wife or whoever, disrespects him? This is somebody who has a severe temper and is going to fly off at the moment's notice. So definitely needs some behavior modification if that's even possible. Now let's talk about security. When they were talking about they went to the wrong courtroom and said everything was fine, I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if you were the judge. As a judge and people like that, you don't go in there expecting this to happen, but it's probably in the back of your mind. But like I said, this is such a one-off scenario. So this judge, I'm sure, was like, what? Now, kudos to her for being like, no, we're going back in tomorrow, and I want him in my courtroom to look me in the face and take a sentence. Like, no, that's not how this works. More power to her for taking that power back, and gaining that. Because that would shake my world, right? And I'm sure it probably did hers, but, she kept on going. Now, one thing that I'm watching is I'm just like, okay, I go back and forth with this. Because part of it is, why don't they have these courtrooms more secure? Well, then obviously you get into, well, look, you never know what's going on. Is it fair for a defendant to be all shackled up in front of a jury or whatever? You know what I'm saying? It's this very fine line. For someone like him, with all this history of like mental health issues and, DV and assault, you would think they would have been on way better lockdown, but maybe he hasn't exhibited this behavior in the courtroom before. However, this could be a game changer for them. Another thing is, are there going to be more charges from this? I'll be very interested to see what comes out of it, because remember, she was very big on like, nope, here's all my receipts. I'm only sentencing him. I haven't changed the sentence. He's not getting a worse sentence. And obviously she's going to need to do that to CYA so that he can't come back and say, she banged me up because I beat her up, even though it makes sense. And the last thing I want to touch on is just how cool she was about this. I went back and forth because I was watching it, and at first when I didn't know the context but heard her make that comment, I was like, yeah, some of these judges will say things, whether I agree with it or not doesn't matter, but it's like, it's on the balancing act of this invisible rule that an inmate's not going to get upset and come after him. Well, he crossed that line. And once somebody crosses that line, most courtrooms you see, the judge and the lawyers and people like this, they're very vulnerable. We saw, what's her name? I can't remember her name. The lady who took out her boyfriend, Shamani or Shadala, or I can't think of the name. She renamed herself. She beat her attorney up sitting next to her. You know what I mean? So that's the part that I think they're going to have to do something to change it, because I just can't see this not being a more common thing, unfortunately and sadly. So that's let me know what you thought of the viral Vegas trampoline courtroom. What stays in Vegas apparently doesn't stay in Vegas when you take it to this level, right? So anyways, if you're still watching, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Roscoe says thank you. And don't forget the sofas. Lord mercy. Drop some sofas in the comment section for him. He'll take my hand, I'll take his little paw. We'll meander our way on down there. And until we do that to talk to you, we'll see y'all soon.